Today on Shelf Life, I have a conversation with Desmond Palmer, the writer of Forerunners, celebrating Jamaica's fastest female Olympians of the 40s through the 70s. There's so much to learn, so remember, enjoy it and share it with a friend. Hi Desmond, how are you doing? Good to see you.
I am doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Looking nice in your pretty shirt there, man. I like it. Love the color.
Yeah, I love colors. My mother, I think, got that into me from a very young age.
Well, that's good because I love colors. I really love colors. I tell people I don't really wear black. I like colors. The world is black enough without more black in it.
I know.
Okay, so I have to tell you that you sent me to write notes, all right? I felt like I was in school taking notes because this book that you have here, Forerunners, is there's so much information, great information that's in it that we need to learn about because let's face it, we know about Shelley and Fraser Price, you know, the Pocket Rocket, VCB and Merlene Ottey and Arthur Wint and Donald Quarry. But these four ladies, some of whose names I've heard before, but you never understood the significance of their names.
Yeah.
Right? But before we get to the book, let me back up. Let me rewind a little bit. Because I would love to be able to talk a little bit about you, your background, where in Jamaica you're from, and how did you get into the writing business? Because you used to work for the Gleaner as well, right?
Yes. Well, I was born in Kingston, right? And I'm one of those who my mother left me when I was 18 months old. She left me in good hands with my grandmother, and she went to London because her brother was there, her older brother. And so I failed a common entrance like 2 times. And, my grandmother went blind when I was about 12. And I had a lot of responsibility at home, but I didn't see it as anything negative. I just saw it that I had to do things. I had to cook, there are some things that we used to pay to get done, like the washing and the cleaning of the house. But, so I would have to take her to the doctor, go to school, primary school, go back home, give her lunch, take her to the doctor, come back. It was a whole thing. But anyway, I learned a lot from that. And I finally passed the technical entrance for St. Elizabeth Tech. Okay. And I got what they call the free place, right?
Yeah, so, I remember free place. So you're a Statsman.
Yeah. So there were subjects that I loved. Like I taught myself, I started learning Spanish by myself in primary school. Right. So by the time I got to high school, I was pretty good. I also loved stuff like geography. I didn't like math. Up to this day, I don't like it. Right?
Well, I tell people it's not that I don't like math. It's that I can't do math. There's a difference.
Yeah. I find it boring.
It's extremely
So anyway, I must tell you this, that up to second form in high school, I couldn't write 2 pages of essay.
Wow.
It was all in my head, but I didn't know how to get it out. And actually, one teacher made the statement that I would never pass English.
I love those statements because those statements propel you forward.
Yes. So when I got to 4th form, which was my final year, I was coming first in Spanish all throughout the years, right? When I got to final year, we got a new teacher. He was a music teacher, and then he taught English. He started teaching English now. Mm-hmm. And believe me, between, I think, September to January or February, I was doing like 20 pages of essay, solid stuff.
Wow, it's
research,
amazing.
Everything.
Amazing what a good teacher can do for you. It's amazing. And that's why teachers must get paid, man.
Exactly.
They change lives.
Yes, exactly. So I passed the exam, but before I passed it, I think it was in May, before we graduated, I saw this. Okay, let me back up a bit. I did the wrong course in school. I did business. I cannot add 2 and 2. Of course, it took me a whole year to understand the difference between debit and credit, right? So in accounting. So anyway, I saw an ad in the paper that Gleaner wanted high school graduates to train as young journalists, and I applied. after I applied, I didn't hear from them, and I started applying to every bank in Jamaica, and I couldn't get a job.
Because you
And the
can't
cleaner
add.
called, exactly, and it wouldn't have made sense. So so the cleaner called me, I think it was September, and Jamaican National had called me around about the same time. They had an interview set up, and one of these bauxite companies in Manchester had called me too,
Wow.
but I went straight to the cleaner. When I went to the cleaner, Judith, 100 of us in a big hall to do this test. It was arithmetic, essay writing, current affairs, and geography. 15 of us got called back out of the 100.
Wow.
We had to do this interview, like we had to face a panel of 5 people, Theodore
Right.
Steele, Barbara Gluten, all of these people. And 6 of us got the job.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think we were talking before this conversation that
Right.
I also wrote for the Gleaner at the same time that you were there. So our paths crossed without even realizing that our paths had crossed.
But the thing is, I was not a reporter. I was a copy editor and a features writer. And they would train you, like you got training for 6 months. And that is how people like Ken Allen, who I owe a lot to, Barbara Gluten, all of these people. So that is how that is it in a nutshell.
Well, you know what? All I can tell you is that all of what was in your head before you could put it on paper, and then finding the right teacher, having the right teacher, bring it out in you. I tell the story about myself as a writer. And one of the teachers who propelled me forward, I'll never forget her, Yvonne Pearson. And when she gave me a C in an essay, and I was livid because I'm like, oh, you're gonna give me a C? I can't add, but I can write.
Yes.
And she looked at me and she said, because that's not your A work.
Yeah.
She said, when you give me your A work, I'll give you an A. Go back and rewrite.
An A, exactly.
And that thing stuck with me my whole life. And so, a good teacher can really propel you forward. So you have been propelled forward now to this point of writing this book. I want to read this thing. Former Prime Minister, you sent me to write notes, I had to take them. Former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson said this: fans of track and field and sports historians owe a debt of gratitude to the author, which is you, for the painstaking research and the diligent analysis which are reflected in the outcome of an ambitious 8-year project. And when I read the book, I have to agree with him that this was a very ambitious project indeed, because this book, Forerunners, which is kind of a play on words, right? It's about forerunners, but it's about the forerunners of runners.
You got it. Yeah.
Was really, really clever. As a writer, I wouldn't expect anything else. But there's so much that we learn from this book, Forerunners, because, preceding Merlene Ottey, as you say in the book, were the stars Cynthia Thompson, Una Morris, Marilyn Newfield, and Rosie Allwood.
Yes.
And I can honestly say that I've heard at least 2 of those names.
Right.
But never understood the significance of those names.
Yes.
And from your book, we learned things like the fact that, 3 of them became doctors.
Yes.
Which was, and one was a nurse. So it's really.
One was a nurse, 1 doctor, 2 doctors, and a social worker. Yes.
And a social worker, right. Yes. And they all became something in the health field, which was very interesting. Yes. They all studied in the US at a time when, there was social unrest, Jim Crow era, civil rights era. It was just fascinating that these women spanned a period between the 40s to the 70s, and that our women, Jamaican women, was blasting down the place at Olympics and world champions from so early, but we just didn't, we don't really know a lot about it. So tell me about the 8-year research, because I've never taken 8 years to write a book. I don't know what it feels like.
Well, okay, so I had a full-time job, and then I used to do like other jobs. I used to moonlight on the side, like tutoring people to write and this kind of thing on the weekends. But I've had a long time love affair with track and field from I was a teenager. Okay. And I used to hear these names. I would clip out pictures and stories from the Gleaner. I had a whole scrapbook of it, right?
Wow.
And I heard these names, and I couldn't get them out of my head, even as an adult. And what happened? I think I went to my barber one day in Brooklyn, and I did a magazine before, two magazines, but they didn't pan out because I couldn't get sponsorship on the whole thing. And one of them had you and Blake on the cover, by the way.
Okay.
So I showed to the barber, and he says, "Oh, I know a Jamaican lady who used to run for Jamaica." I said, "Who is that?" She says, "Her name is Rosie Allwood, and she lives in Jersey." I'm like, "Look, I need to talk to Rosie Allwood." And he connected us, right? And I met her. I mean, this was like a dream come true, because I'm not usually a starstruck person.
Yeah.
But these people, it's like 360. Now I have to meet them. Now I have to hear the stories.
Right.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I want to write a book. First, I said I couldn't write a book like a novel. I don't have that stick to it in this thing to sit down and write a book. But I have to do something differently, you know? So I talked to her. We had this relationship going, we would talk a lot. And then one day just hit me that I should do a book on Jamaican women, because we don't hear about the women. We hear about Arthur Wint, we hear about her McKinley and all these people. Yes. And I decided that I was going to do it. And then I was talking to my wife, Stacey, about it. And she says, yes, do it and let them tell their stories. And that just shaped the whole thing. That's why it's divided like that, the storytelling part and the informational part.
And it's amazing because we learned so much stuff, like Una Morris Chung, for example, is a 3-time Olympian. I mean, never thought about that. Moved to California as a teenager. And for over 8 years, she represented Jamaica in the Olympic Games, 64, 68, 72, the Central American and Caribbean Games, the Pan American Games, all these things. I have to, as I said, I had to write notes. I don't I have to write notes because I'm like, hold on. Me can't keep so much information in my head. And because it's so, you have so much information in there. What was it like sitting down with these 4 ladies? And let me just remind you who the 4 ladies are.
Before I get to that part of it, the 8 years came out of the research. I treated it like a university project paper, like that, So I had to do a lot of research and check and cross-check and, Anyway, sitting down with the 4 ladies, like, it was just amazing. I met Rosie first, and then I didn't know much about Cynthia Thompson. And I spoke to a friend about the project, and he says, Desmond, you cannot write a book like that without talking about Cynthia Thompson. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And I went to Kingston, sat down with her in her living room.
Wow.
Went into her, that's how I got the pictures, went into her backyard garden with her. It was like an aunt telling me stories from way back when.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
It was just amazing. Rosie, the same thing. I met you, we did a lot of many of the interviews I did with you when were done over the phone.
Right.
But I've met her like 3 times, And then I went to London in 2017. I had already interviewed Marilyn Newville by Skype. And I went there and she invited me to her house for dinner and we had a good time.
Hold on, stick a pin right there. So stick a pin right there. So because isn't she the one who did basically cuss off Britain?
Yes,
because
I remember that story.
Yeah, in there you have a story which I had to make a note of. And she said, I owe this country nothing. I'm leaving for good. I've been called a black bastard and an N-word, she said. And reacting, they said, that whatever Miss Newfield's past and present grievances, her attitude is unlikely to benefit any cause.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's interesting. Another British reporter came to her rescue and said, well, if what she said is true, then we have some reckoning to do. And it's amazing that here we are so many years later with Britain still having this reckoning to do.
Still doing the same thing.
Reckoning to do. Not much has changed. And at the time that you and I are having this conversation, since we're talking sports, the black football players.
Look what they're going through. Yes.
Look what they're going through. Yes. Being called monkeys and, all kinds of.
The more things change, the more they remain the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And so when you said she still lives in London, that's why I laughed.
Yeah, because she went back. She did her degree in the US and she had a child, and then she went back to live in London. And she lives in Chelsea, a real nice area. That's where she is.
Okay.
And then they still treated her, as the book tells you, terribly on her job, and but she is the sort of person, she's very strong-willed. And as you might have read where she said she's the last of 6 kids, and she had to learn to stand up in the face of that thing, adversity. She had to, so
I'm the fourth of 4 strong women. I had 3 strong older sisters. I had to be loud. I had to be able to stand up. I had to be able to stand up on my own feet.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. The other thing that really struck me about it was that she was the fastest woman at the time in the 400 meters. Newfield.
Yes.
I'm like, why are we not hearing her name? Why is her name not, being
exactly
everybody else's?
That's my point. They're just like shunted off after a while, And that is the point. That is part of my reason for writing the book too. Jamaican kids need to learn about these people.
Yes. Yes.
And I would like for this book to get into schools because they need to learn about these people. And the current athletes can learn a lot from these people.
Yes. So. And I frequently find books on this show that should be in schools.
Yeah.
The content that needs to be taught in schools. And one of the things that I do, and I always encourage authors who have books like yours to do, is to plan a tour around Jamaica.
Yes. Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, contact me. I can help you with that. But plan a tour around Jamaica. The schools are always happy to have you come in and talk to their students and all. They're always looking for people who are willing to come back and pour into their students.
Yes.
And I mean,
great idea.
if you can get the ministry to embrace this book as something that the school should have, that's wonderful. Yeah. But even if you can't, you definitely need to plan a tour on your own to go down and contact the schools and get into the schools, because this is information, especially the girls, the female athletes who are aspiring to be Shelly-Ann and VCB and Merlene and Thompson, and they're aspiring to be these people, but they don't realize that their aspirations go so much further back and that the roots are deeper.
That's why I decided to stop the book right there before Merlene Atti, because her thing is a whole different show. So yeah.
Were there any surprises that you learned in the process? Anything that you found out that was like a real surprise?
Well, one of the things that really had me going, and this had nothing to do with running, is a personal story of Cynthia Thompson when she told me about her son's murder. Because that just shows you that they are just like anybody else. They go through. And I just asked her simple questions like, do you have children? And does any of them follow? And she just paused, and you could see the look on her face. And then she says, you see that picture behind you? That's my son. That was my son. And I almost regretted at the moment that I asked her the question, because I felt like a whole thing just came down over me, and it was just a terrible thing.
But you can't tell the story of a life without telling the story of a life.
Yes. And another one that shocked me was Marlene Newville, who I knew that Britain was against her, but to take it to that level.
Yes.
Where she went to a press conference. This is a 17-year-old you're talking about, and to go to a press conference, and your manager had to advise you to just shake your head, don't say anything.
And we're still there.
Yes, definitely.
Still there.
And the next one that shocked me was, and these are their personal stories, had nothing to do with running. It's the story, the abduction, the kidnapping thing of Rosie Allwood. It shows you how strong she was and how quickly she can think on her feet.
On her feet, yes. I mean, I'm telling you, this book has so much in it. There's so much than just the running. as you said. It's their stories. And I like that about it, is that although it's about these runners, it's really about them and their stories. And that their stories are not just stories of running. It's not just about when they were supposed to go to the Olympics. I love the story about the banana boat.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to remember who it was who actually...
It's Cynthia Thompson. Cynthia.
Yes.
1948, yes.
1948, right. Going to the World Games in London. They had to take a banana boat. And the banana boat went to St. Thomas to pick up bananas and then went on. And she tells a story about this is the first time she was going on a boat and she never know she mustn't eat a whole heap of food, really.
I know, right?
And it's the fun thing about it is just a week before you and I are having this conversation, I was talking to somebody else who said that they had arrived in Jamaica on a banana boat. It was another author. Wow. And she was saying that, and I'm thinking, a real banana boat? Because you don't really think about it. That is how you had to travel to England. Yeah, that's how you had to be transported, on a banana boat. The boat would come to Jamaica and take bananas, and you book a passage on the banana boat. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to England on this banana boat, where you know, in this little cramped quarters. And this is not, okay, for our everyday, our today people who like to cruise, this is not a cruise ship, a banana boat.
This is not a cruise, no.
Okay.
No.
None of the fancy balancers or whatever they call it, the ballast that keep it nice and steady. None of that stuff.
No.
That's
not happening.
Not happening. This is a big boat that takes bananas. And that story was funny. And just what they went through.
Just what they went through.
Just what they went through. Being at the University of Tennessee, for example. You know, one of them went to the University of Tennessee. It was Cynthia Thompson. And they say she went to, she was a stellar student, and newspapers even wrote about her. You know, which...
What I love about this project is that I some things I didn't think about, but then I kept researching, and then things just started coming. I was finding things all over the place. So I'm like, I have to put this together. I cannot write a straight story like that. I have to divide it into sections, and you know, so that worked really well for me.
It does. The way the book is laid out is very easy to read. It's really, really easy to read. And I said that because I want people who are, you have some people who only read novels. And then have some people who only read nonfiction. Yeah. But this book can be read by both nonfiction readers and fiction readers. Because
thanks to the Gleaner for my training, because I because of what I learned as a Gleaner, what I was doing, I was able to lay out the book myself.
Good.
I did it myself. Yeah.
And that helps. That always helps. What has the response to the book been like since it's been out?
It has been very good. I mean, to be honest, quite a number of people have not read it. They bought it to support me. And I'm like, did you read the book yet? No, I have read it. I'm waiting until I go. I'm like, you have to read the book. But there's this one guy who called me. He's a real estate broker. And I didn't even know that the guy read. And he said, I used to read how many books a month? And I haven't been able to do it because of my job. And when I picked up this book, he says I couldn't put it down. He said,
I felt the same way.
He said this book is more than just a book about athletes. It's a book about immigrants and their struggles and their success.
Yes. And it's a book about life.
Yes.
It's a
another
book about,
lady I know.
Another lady wrapping your whole life being involved in your passion. And it's not your passion.
Exactly. And coming from him, that was a big compliment. And I know somebody else who wrote a review on Amazon about it. And his mother, he bought it for his mother, Mother's Day, right? And she couldn't put it down. She took 2 days and 2 nights. She couldn't put it down.
It is one of those books that you just read cover to cover. First of all, because the topic is fascinating, that there are these 4 Jamaican women who were these amazing runners. Sadly, none of them actually won an Olympic medal. One came very, very close. But they did set track records. They did break glass ceiling.
World records, yep.
And break world records and broke barriers. And they did amazing things that our country has not really recognized them for.
Recognized, exactly. Yep.
And so I really hope that this book will really open people's eyes and start that process of recognizing these 4 women who are not being recognized the way they should be recognized.
Yes, I really hope so.
Yeah,
I really do.
I really, really hope so. And I mean, I'm hoping, since, you know, the former prime minister wrote the foreword to the book, that that really will help to propel it forward.
Yes,
And his foreword was really good. Your introduction was really good. And I read that first. Normally, I just kind of just breezed through that, but I actually read it and went into it in detail because there was just so much there about it. And I, like every Jamaican, you know, I follow track and field when Olympics on.
Right.
Or World Games or whatever. I can be honest, I'm not a track and field fan to the point where, you know, I follow everything. I am a Mount Alvernia alum, and I can say that we have 2 ladies on the Jamaica Olympics team.
Kemba Nelson, right?
Kemba Nelson is one. And I hate to admit, but I'm going to have to go look up the name of the other one. But we have 2, right? And of course, you know, I'm going to be following it this year. And of course, you follow the races when, you know, people tell you the race is going to be on, you're going to watch that.
Yes.
But having read this book, it really gives me an even greater understanding of who we are as a people.
Yes.
Not just as runners now, but as a people.
Yep.
The depth of our commitment to our country, you know, the depth of our passion for the things that we do, and why we excel so much at everything we do, even the badness.
Yes.
I think we have this history that comes from our foreparents, and I don't just mean the Africans who came over, the enslaved.
Everybody, the whole lineage. Yeah.
The whole lineage. We have this very rich lineage and these people who are strong. And I think that's just in our DNA and in our blood.
Yeah. Maurice Strong had a very strong statement when she said, you remember when she wanted to rent this building? And the guy was like, no. And then she says, I am a Jamaican, and Jamaicans are not afraid of anybody. And you cannot threaten me about you're going to do this. It tells a lot.
You know, it's funny. I was walking through an airport just the other day, and I don't remember what somebody said. And I that's exactly what I heard. I didn't know who the woman was. I just heard a woman say, I'm a Jamaican. That don't matter to me. Like, I don't know what the conversation was about. And that is really who we are, you know.
Yes.
I had somebody said to me this week, because I went to Antarctica, the first Jamaican woman to go to Antarctica. And I remember and I have an exhibit on it and everything. And I remember being interviewed just this week that we're having this conversation. And the person said to me, you Jamaicans, you have no limits. And I'm like, no, we have no limits.
We're everywhere. Yep.
We're everywhere, doing everything, bobsledding, we are skiing and winning competitions.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Jamaicans curling. You know, doing curling.
Yeah, you never know. You tell a Jamaican that he or she can't do something. That's our
motivator. Our motivator is telling us that we can't do it. If you tell us we can't do it, then we're going to do it. Boy, Desmond, I'm telling you, wonderful book. The book is called Forerunners, people. You've got to check it out. It's the forerunner to the runners that we have today. It's 4 amazing ladies who did fascinating things on the track and field. And the book is available in all the usual places, you know, online. Desmond, you have a website?
Yes, I haven't put it up yet. I'm looking about that. That's tracklifeinternational.com.
All right, so you got to check it out. Desmond, thank you so much for being on Shelf Life. This has been wonderful. And remember, you know, link me. Let us talk about your tour in Jamaica.
I certainly will do that. Yes, and I thank you very much for you know, giving the book this, you know, airing about it. And it's really good. I really, really appreciate it.
You are most welcome. That's what we're here for. Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you. Thank you for sticking and staying with me on another Shelf Life. I'll see you again next week, same place, same, well, not same place, same time. Next week, I'll be back with my shelf and what's on my shelf to show you some more of what's on my shelf. Have a great week. Bless up.